Good day to everyone. First of all, I have to thank our organizing committee for giving me an opportunity to present my paper. Will 3 plus 3 will be equal to 9? Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Chandrachud, professor from Department of Economics, Wales Institute of Science, Technology and Advanced Studies. This is my contact number. Today, we're going to discuss about the post-pandemic situation in India. This novel idea came out of our economic view, whether this post-pandemic period forces us to make 3 plus 3 equal to 9. People may get surprised how it is possible. The logic of this slogan is a new economy for India. The first three implies the major three sectors: agriculture sector, industrial sector, and service sector. And the second three indicates the working sector, that is public sector, private sector, and the foreign sector. By combining these three set of sectors, we have to make a 9, that is a new India, new economy, the 9. Actually, this particular paper is having 6 chapters. Chapter 1 discuss about few theories which are from the classical period, and chapter 2 will give what are the previous study about this, like what are the recession period, what is the depression and other financial crises we faced by this globe. And chapter 3 trying to explain what is the current pandemic situation. And chapter 4 is what are all the initiatives taken by central government and state government to recover the economy. And the fifth chapter, we are going to discuss about how we can formulate a model to recover India from this pandemic situation. Definitely, the economic impact is very worse, so we should do something for that. For that only, I have created a model called 9 model. The last chapter summarizes what type of changes is required for Indian economy to revive that. So let's start with the theories related with this particular pandemic situation. So I take supply and demand as thing. There is one law called JB law that John Baptist say a famous slogan called "Supply creates its own demand." This is a very classical theory. This has been disproved by Keynes' version, and because he said demand only creates supply. So in his book General Theory of Employment and Interest of Money, he insisted the economy depend on demand. But on the whole, what classical, neoclassical, or modern economy, they are assumed finally the economy will reach full employment, and with a normal situation, there won't be any deflation or inflation. So the classical theory assumes that that is a full employment without inflation. But whether it is true or not, we don't know, but they assume that it is. So what I want to say, instead of keep on talking about the supply and demand, that is a production and consumption, why don't we make some new theory? The basic problem of India is the per capita income, population problem, and other unemployment problem. If the government insists the individual above 16 years must be employed, it is mandatory. Either they have to work physically, mentally, or socially. So these are some of my view of literature. Actually, there are a number of financial crises and depression and recession and other kind of credit oil price shock, all these things. I've selected the top five. Actually, the credit crisis of 1972 started in London, which spread all over the Europe, leads to unforced close down of many banking institutions. Later, that's a Great Depression in 1929. Considered to be the worst economic crack in the last century, originated from the Wall Street crash and extended to the output loss, unemployment problem, and financial crisis in the most developed countries. It reaches its crown crisis during 1933. Another worst recession is it is a price shock in 1973, originated from the member nation of the organization petrol export countries, that is OPEC. This economic crisis leads to stagnation in inflation because this has originated from the Gulf countries. And later, in 1997, there was a crisis from Thailand, which is quickly spread over in East Asia. The Asian tigers are that the Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and South Korea, Hong Kong. Almost all the countries are bankrupt of stakeholders. Finally, in 2007 and 8, almost all the countries have trapped in that particular financial crisis. The world have reached a financial collapse. It is to be noted that India, our country India, has witnessed supremacy in handling this economic situation. In all this top five economic crack situation, India stood unaffected, bold, and somehow managed and maintained the level of economic indicators. However, the present pandemic situation of COVID-19 triggered from China and quickly spread all over the world and collapsed almost all the economies, irrespective of whether it is a third world country or developing country or super country like US or Japan. Everyone now facing the financial crisis, unemployment problem, and other production stoppage, every problem that they are facing. Of course, India is going to face all these problems. So let me continue my research paper in these headings. One is what is the economic impact of COVID-19 in pandemic situation, and the second one is what role of government to face this pandemic situation, what they did, and my model called 9 model, how to create a new India, new economy. For that, I created a model called 3 plus 3 equal to 9. With this, we'll continue with the economic impact of pandemic situation. Actually, according to the government records, the fourth quarter of 2019-20 fiscal year, the economic growth of the economy had reduced 3.1% due to coronavirus pandemic situation. Already, India has witnessed a slowdown in the pre-pandemic period, and pandemic COVID-19 has added the fuel to the burning duct. The World Bank also rightly pointed out that the current pandemic slowdown makes excuse me. The World Bank have rightly pointed out that it's a magnified pre-existing risk of India's economic outlook. Most of the rating agencies of globe have made a precaution that there will be a negative growth and signaling the recession. One of the biggest commercial bank in India, the State Bank of India, conducted a research and announced that over 40% of contraction in GDP during the first quarter of financial year 2021, and it will be a further increase in the forthcoming period. Most of the prediction in the world level indicates unemployment level will rise from 6.7% to 26% in the financial year 2021, and it will reach 45% in the end of the time. And it is to be noted that estimated rate value of coronavirus outbreak nearly 21,000 crores per day, but some studies have said it is 32 crores per day during the 21 days lockdown in the March-April 2020. The lockdown has been extended more than 3 months. The production stopped abruptly, and the mobilization of resources is stagnated. The purchasing power of the public reduced drastically, and even the contractor and casual laborers starved, and jobless migrants moved to their hometown, and it catalyzed a huge unemployment level. The huge number of marginal who engaged in growing perishables and vegetables, fruits, stopped their production due to uncertainty, and those who are cultivated find difficult to move the output from ultimate consumers due to lockdown. Most of the education institute and a few trains have been converted into part-time health and clinic, and also the international transactions stopped due to lockdown. Most of the private firms find difficult to continue their entrepreneurship and facing a heavy loss due to lockdown. All the education institutes are not able to impart education to the students and planning to take online classes. These are some of the lockdown results. We have summarized: there's a production stoppage, loss of job, scarcity for essential commodities, and high price for vegetables and fruits, and those output are not able to transit to the required place, and even some of the private firms find difficult to provide salary to their employees due to work stoppage, but still somehow they have managed and they have continued. In the future, we don't know what's going to happen. So now let's move to what is the role of government under this pandemic situation. I have to accept the Indian government for dynamic role, both in central and state level of government, is restricted to spread coronavirus in a great extent after knowing the economic evil effects of first pandemic period. In order to rescue the economy in the post-pandemic crisis, on April 17, I think, April 17, 2020, the Governor of Central Bank, the Reserve Bank of India, announced a special finance to 50,000 crores Indian rupee to three major banks: is NABARD, SIDBI, and NHB. That is National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development Bank, and Small Industries Development Bank of India, and National Housing Bank. And on May 12th, the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced an overall economic package of 20 lakh crores, nearly 10% of our GDP, to achieve the self-reliant nation. And in the next 5 days, that is from May 13th to 17th, our Honorable Finance Minister, Mrs. Sitaraman, announced a detailed economic packages. And 2 days later, that is 20th of May, we have cleared almost all the economic packages, and of course, free food grains package also. These are all the contribution from the central government. Now let's start with the state government. Almost all the state governments survived with the things, especially a special thanks to Tamil Nadu government and Maharashtra government, who have faced a worst pandemic situation. As far as the Tamil Nadu state government is concerned, the government has tried level best to face the pandemic situation, announced rupees 1,000 twice for almost all the families of the state, and they provide free rice, oil provisions for 3 months through civil supply. Most of the private firms, irrespective of stoppage of they disperse salaries to their employees. That definitely is an appreciable sign. Why? Because each and everyone have work to that level, and not even the government, but also the private sector have contributed well. And now we'll move how to solve this pandemic situation. For that, I have created a 9 model called 3 plus 3 equal to 9. There are 3 sectors: agriculture sector, industrial sector, and service sector, and public sector, private sector, and foreign sector. So almost all the agriculture sector are in the hands of the private sector. Why? Because the landowners or the agriculture sector. What my suggestion is, from the private, some land or is agriculture related activity should move from private to public and foreign sector. Similarly, the industrial sector also, with the public sector and private sector, we should share equally with the public, private, and foreign. Of course, the service sector, the agriculture contribution is nil for the service sector. The service sector are in the hands of the private, which should move to the public sector. So each and every source of work and operating sectors must have a link called production operative model. So based on that, there is a calculation. We have run the regression and we find out how much percentage of agriculture should be contributed to these three, how much industrial unit must be run by this public, private, and foreign, and how the service sector should be formed. The easiest solution out of this model is the major challenges that we face after pandemic. Of course, during the pandemic, also after pandemic, we are going to face 3 challenges. One is agricultural production will be drastically going to decrease. We don't know what we're going to do. And the second problem, most of them will lose their job, and there will be a problem of unemployment. And there will be some problem related with population, because it's very difficult to supply food for all the people. And population means there will be a demand for necessary goods, comfortable goods, and other essential commodities. All this problem will arise. I have summarized as a population-led problem. The easiest solution is we have to use the excess manpower of agriculture sector to the agriculture sector by generating more employment opportunities with a new set of rules under 9 model. What is the new set of rules? The government should take care of all essential services like energy, environment, and other civil supplies. The private sector will not only engage in industry, but also they should go for the agriculture. All the people, those who are attaining 16, should work something for the agriculture. And finally, the service sector, definitely, it should be improved. This 9 model definitely will give a required change in the future. Thank you, Unadol, for giving me opportunity to present this paper. Thank you very much. It's me, Dr. Chandrachud.